So we're gonna talk about Rutger Bregman. He actually did the same thing. He had a title on Bullshit Jobs, and it was actually interesting. And I like his flamboyant take on the shit, was kind of fucking hilarious. And we're gonna actually watch this. So let's go.
Okay, so let me just restate. You've written that the welfare state, despite all the advances, deals with the symptoms of our discontent as opposed to the source of our discontent. Just expand on that and explain what you mean by that.
Sure. Well, if we talk about something like poverty, I think the most important thing we should recognize that poverty is not a lack of character, it's just a lack of cash. So in that book, I go over all the evidence we have from economics, from all sorts of experiments that happened since the 70s that show that eradicating poverty by just giving people money, going at the root of the problem and solving it with this medicine called money, works really, really well. But so often what we're doing in practice is that we're, trying to do something about the symptoms, right?
So, in other words, give people money and let them decide. And you know what? You know what happens when you do that? People actually spend it on the shit that they need. Now, I am nowhere near somebody who says that Andrew Yang's universal basic income bullshit, because that's all it is. It's a gimmick. It is definitely a gimmick to cut the social safety net, and what kind of gets me about it is that it's not there to actually, make sure people are taken care of. It's there to actually cut the social safety net, just like they did in like Alaska, where they have almost no social safety net and things are fucked. But let's continue.
We invest in education, all these courses that are supposed to help people make better decisions. That's not really solving the real issue, which is that poverty is just a lack of cash. And in so many cases, we should just hand out the salaries of the people that are trying to help the poor, because the real experts on the poor's lives are the poor themselves. Just that they don't have the money.
Let's talk a little bit about the.
And I don't know how to play as fucking
a considerable amount
set.
of, at the very least, data and evidence. Let's talk about what you call Mincome Canada, which I think. I think maybe to a certain extent we've talked about a little bit or touched on on this program, but tell us about the experiment in Canada, and which I don't think most people realize. There was also experiments in this country with simply paying poor people money so they won't be poor.
All right, so yeah, he's gonna get into the whole conversation about what we actually did before, and it's back in my catalog where I'm talking about Berkman, about how they did the experiment with Canada, and we're gonna actually let that play a little bit. But how they just gave money and people were okay. But let's continue.
Yeah, not many people know that at the end of the 60s in the United States, almost everyone believed that some form of guaranteed basic income was going to be implemented. Everyone was in favor of it, from the left to the right. At some point there was a letter in the New York Times signed by 1,000 economists who all said, we got to end poverty in this country. And then in the early 70s, Richard Nixon, of all people, said, you know what, if everyone's in favor of this, let's do it. It's a pretty bizarre history. This bill went through the House of Representatives twice, and it was only killed in the Senate by Democrats, not because they didn't like the idea of eradicating poverty, but because they wanted a higher basic income. So yeah, this is a pretty fascinating history. It was also in this period that in North America, you had as much as 5 big basic income experiments. And indeed, one of them was, as you mentioned, in this small town in Canada, the Mincome experiment.
Well, tell us a little bit about that experiment.
All right, so listen how ironic that is. Richard Nixon was the one to actually start it, but it was killed because people didn't have enough money. That's fucking awesome. But damn, that new hell skin actually looks pretty nice. Is that the best way to fucking draw hell? I got let's. I'm sorry, guys. I want to actually take a look and see. When it comes up, I can actually do it. I like that skin. The skin actually looks nice. I just got a new idea for a drawing. Wow. Which one is it? Pop punk. That is a nice hell skin. And she flips to the. I'm sorry. I'm, I'm fascinated by it. Wow, that's a nice ass hell skin. But let's go.
Okay, so this started in 1974. A big experiment, a town where poverty was just completely eradicated. So as soon as you fell below the poverty line, your income would be automatically topped up. Now, there were lots of anthropologists and economists and sociologists who all moved into that town to monitor the effect. And they gathered a lot of data, did a lot of interviews for 4 years. But after 4 years, there was a problem. A new government was voted into power, and they didn't really like the experiment, or the idea of just giving people free money. So what they did is they canceled the whole thing, and there was no money left to analyze the results. So there were 2,000 boxes full of data that had to be put away in the archive, and then basically everyone forgot about it.
So, and you heard the story again before. Basically, there are people. The experiment worked. And it actually helped, but a government came in. Probably people that are thinking like we hate giving away money, and we would hate to be to blame because no government hates giving away money. They hate to be blamed for giving away money to people that are felt to be beneath. But let's continue.
But 25 years passed until a professor called Evelyn Forget found the record, did the analysis, and found out that actually it was a huge success.
And by huge success, what are the measures that we're using to determine that?
Okay, a couple of things. So, in the first place, a lot of people worry that if you would just give people free money, that they'll just stop working. Now, this is simply not true. So in all the experiments, you see hardly any reduction in work hours. And if there's a little bit of a reduction, it is always compensated by people doing more volunteers work, or caring for the children or caring for the elderly. So that's not something to worry about. And then you've got all the other positive effects, like healthcare costs went down. So the hospital.
So, funny enough, what happened was people didn't have to work as hard. So they started doing shit like being charitable. Or, taking care of the elderly or children. Who the fuck wants to see that happen in a society, right? Am I right, guys? But let's continue.
Hospitalization rate in Dauphin, this town that I was talking about, dropped by as much as 8.5%. Crime went down. Kids doing much better in school. So the interesting thing here, and this is something that researchers actually found from a similar experiment in North Carolina, is that basic income can be an investment that pays for itself in the long run, because the reductions in healthcare costs and policing costs, etc., are bigger than the cash grants themselves. So it doesn't really matter if you whether you're left wing or right wing. I always say that if you don't have a heart, then at least you have a wallet. It makes fun.
So, interesting enough, if you have a bigger social safety net, people actually act a little bit more humane when they get to be treated as humans. What? No. It's almost as if crime is a product of being poor and making bad decisions. It's almost as if, if we take care of our society, people actually come out living better, acting better. And you know what? The same can be said for a lot of different things. Did you know you actually save money with giving it away to poor people for healthcare costs? Because more people that are able to look after themselves, they actually go to the doctor more often and don't use the emergency room as a primary care. But, you know, humanity who really fucking needs it, right? But let's continue.
Financial sense as well.
And what of, I mean, one of the, and I want to touch on in just a moment some of the fascinating history about Nixon, because that in addition to the Democrats wanting more, there was another narrative that got developed out of that time inadvertently by Nixon, you write, and I want to touch on that in a moment. But in terms of the policy itself, to what extent, though, and this has been to the extent.
And we know Nixon fucked up. Nixon fucked a lot of people pretty harshly. We know that Nixon did that. And I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't some racist shit behind it. I mean, like, I wouldn't be surprised. I actually would expect it. But, you know, just wouldn't be surprised. But let's fucking continue.
Extent that I've heard any critiques of a UBI from the left, it has been a.
After studying on Udemy, I have now a full-time job as a software engineer. I make 3 times more money than the money I spent on the courses on Udemy. And I had a friend who is working in this field and he's very good at what he does. He said,
concern of the politics that in some way.
Sorry, guys, trying to get back so I can pick up these minions.
Way we saw with Dauphine, which is that you could, you know, folks like Milton Friedman wanted to institute a UBI, or you know, a guaranteed basic income, and as a replacement for other forms of support for people living in poverty. And the concern is that if you put all the eggs in that one basket, the ability of that basket to shrink, depending on the political winds, is difficult.
Well, you know, I really see basic income as a directional thought. And there are many, many different versions of basic income out. Very exciting and, you know, hopeful. And some of them are just a really bad idea. You know,
like Yang's idea of universal basic income. Yang's idea of a universal basic income is shit. It's a way of cutting the social safety net. And no, we're not going to do that. We're definitely not going to do that. Speaking of safety net, let me just... Yeah, I'm about to get my ass handed to me. Shit, run away. Whew. Damn. No. Damn it. Okay. Let's go. Haven't died
you
yet.
have this libertarian version of basic income, which is all about, you know, getting rid of the welfare state as we have it now and just supplanting it with one small cash grant.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. We should not get rid of the welfare state as we have it now in order to give universal basic income. We have enough money to do fucking both. And what irritates me is that people want to take, universal basic income and actually use it as a way to say, we're going to give poor people money, but cut all the other social safety net strings. No, that's shitty. And you still screw people over like that. But let's continue. Damn it.
Don't get me wrong, I think that would be a horrible idea. I mean, I'm from Holland. I know that universal healthcare is a pretty great thing. And public education is also a pretty great thing. So a guaranteed basic income would really be supplement. It would be the crowning achievement of social democracy.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's, the devil's in the details here. It's important to look at that.
Okay, and so tell us about what Nixon did. I mean, it was fascinating, the idea that he wanted to be the conservative who makes this sort of like highly progressive leap forward. But in his rhetoric, he ended up sort of creating another monster.
Yeah.
So, I think it was all the investigations that fucked Nixon over. It was all of those investigations that screwed Nixon in the end, because Nixon, he created the fucking EPA. Nixon created the fucking EPA. Like, fuck this store. Fuck this store in particular. Matter of fact, fuck all Thors. Fuck Thor's Day, because it's Friday is better. Fuck all Thors. Thors. I was about to say Thors can go to hell, but yeah, that's still, I don't know.
Well, it's a good example that, if you zoom out a little bit and look at the broader span of history, you just realize that it's really ideas that matter in the long run, right? So it's really hard to imagine right now that at the early 70s, it was this conservative president almost...
I hope they're making progress on the side, but speaking of progress, yeah, it was Nixon, and I really think it was... If he just wasn't such a horrible person, his name would have actually been mentioned in history in a lot more favorable life. But the whole starting a drug war, starting racist policies, and all this other good shit, and spying on the Democratic Party in their offices, kind of would tarnish a lot of shit for you. But let's continue. Shit. Yeah, run, motherfucker, run. But let's continue. I hate doing videos like this when I'm playing Smite, but let's go.
Implementing
because I can get too wrapped up in
seemingly
it.
radical progressive idea. Now, what happened in that process in the 70s is that it's a pretty bizarre and complicated history. But to summarize it quite quickly, is that Nixon heard something about a report of a sort of basic income issue-like experiment that happened in the early 19th century, actually, in England, where supposedly they had some kind of basic income that didn't work at all. And that sort of convinced him to change his language. So he started to use the language of workfare, as opposed to welfare.
And so, yeah, if Nixon was, like, as good as, like, damn, even in a Watchmen timeline where Nixon rode to popularity on the third term, he was still an ass. But let's go.
And he started talking a lot about the lazy poor and the lazy, people who were out of job. And, that was later taken up by Reagan as well. And then we moved into a totally different era. What I've learned from all of this is that history is not governed by big laws, and often it's not governed by, the vested interest either. But coincidences matter a lot, and ideas as well.
So he looks at Speen Hamland in England.
In England,
and thinks that workfare is going to be the easiest way to get this guaranteed basic income in, and it ends up all that we get from that is this notion of the premise of workfare, that you need to motivate people to work. Let's talk about your other proposal, and that comes from in part, I guess, maybe the Jetsons, in part from Bertrand Russell.
Yeah, this is the funniest fucking thing that there is. But let's go.
The idea of a 15-hour work week.
Yeah.
Explain that to us.
Okay, so this idea, it basically goes back to the famous British economist John Maynard Keynes, right? So in 1930, he wrote an essay called Economic Possibilities for Our Grandchildren. It's a really fascinating read. You can just Google it, Economic Possibilities for Our Grandchildren, and your mind may be blown because he made two predictions in that essay.
All right, and Keynes was actually a fun economist, and it was demand side economics. This is like, and one day I'm gonna actually go through the whole Mark Black. It is some great Mark Black videos where I think they're like really fun and really enjoyable, and I think we should actually go through it. I gotta dedicate one Saturday to do it because it's not like these 10 or 15-minute videos where I can just talk crazy about them, and I probably won't be gaming doing them because it's, you guys see how easy I'm distracted with this game. But let's continue. There we go. Tag that ass, Nua. Come on, get that ass, get that ass. Yes. Sorry.
It's just 8 pages long, where he said, in the first place, we're going to be a lot richer, right? So if economic growth continues as it has been, as we've seen it since the 1850s, we'll be a lot richer. And if we just use a little bit of that wealth every year to work a little bit less, then the work week will keep shrinking and shrinking and shrinking.
Fucking
we'll
Nike.
less and less and less. And it's
All right, so by now it was almost common knowledge to say that, hey, we actually should be at a 15-hour work week by now. Fucking Henry fucking Ford thought this way. That's why he gave his workers more money and a day off to shop, and that boomed the economy and people bought more Ford cars. But these reductionists as late stage capitalism motherfuckers, where they think, no, we can't trust the masses to spend their money on things that would help them out or even make sure that they can live in a way where they're not splurging but they're living comfortably. No, we can't trust them that much, so we have to beat them into submission by dictating how they spend most of their day and depriving them of the funds that they need to survive, which is fucking stupid because, hey, give more people more money, they're going to go out and buy shit. But let's continue.
if you just extrapolate, we'll have a 15-hour work week in 2030. That was Keynes' prediction, one of the great economists of the 20th century. Now, you could say, I never really liked Keynes anyway, he was this crazy guy. But actually, almost all the experts, all the sociologists, the philosophers, up until the 70s, they all believed that we would be working less and less and less. It's only since around the 1980s that we started working in a hell of a lot more.
Well, what happened? I've spoken on this program about finding an article in a steamer trunk at a yard sale from a futurist, I think it was in the early 60s, addressing a Rotary Club in Florida, talking about how we're all going to be carrying around little TVs, which was accurate. We're going to get beam stuff from the space. He thought at the time they would be powered by kerosene, but so you can't get everything right. But he did say the biggest challenge we're going to have by the year 2000 is what to do with our leisure time.
No, that's not what happened. Because fucking capitalism. Because fucking capitalism, we're in this shit state that we're in now. Because people are fucking greedy, and we need to crush any opposition to our perceived dominance. Which is fucking stupid. But let's continue.
Because of the amount of work that we would not need to do. So what happened? I mean, this is what you call, many respects, I think what you call the great decoupling. But what happened?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. What we underestimate is capitalism's extraordinary amount, or extraordinary ability, I should say, to come up with new bullshit jobs. Jobs that simply don't need to exist. To be honest, I can already see this, as someone from Holland, where workers are better protected and we've got a higher minimum wage. You see so many jobs in America that just don't exist in Holland, right? Greeters at a supermarket, so much security, that's not really necessary in my mind, right?
Yes, because here's the thing. So many people are oppressed with their wages, with their fucking freedoms to come and move as they need to. We have no choice. How do we work the most but watch the most TV? Or YouTube? Don't fucking know. But let's continue.
So capitalism is really good at inventing all these jobs that don't really need to exist. Now, if you don't believe me, you can ask people themselves, right? We've seen huge polls in the past couple of years. There's now a scientific study done by 2 Dutch economists where they ask people the question, do you think your job adds anything of value to society? Turns out 25% of the modern workforce says no. No, I don't add anything of value to society. I could go on strike and no one would care. Now, who are these people? Well, they're not teachers, they're not nurses, they're not care workers. Actually, they're often people with wonderful resumes who went to great universities, who work for banks or for consultancies or you name it. But still, at the end of the day, they have this feeling like, my job doesn't contribute anything.
Yeah, motherfucker, run.
Well, so what? I mean, what? Why is it, in your estimation,
Fuck
is
you!
that capitalism?
Sorry about that, guys. Why?
In the context of the United States, it develops these
Ooh,
bullshit
Arthur.
jobs. I mean, I think we had Graeber on to talk about this some time back. Why do you think it is? I mean, has that been the answer, as opposed to like what are the forces that create that dynamic?
Well, I don't think it's about technology or about economics. It's really about ideology. If you have this ideology that goes back to the 19th century, which is all about you have to work for your money, and where we use a very narrow definition of what work actually is. So you have to be in a hierarchical relationship with an...
All right, so here's the thing, and this is why anybody who's working for the fucking gig economy should realize one of the tenets. Like, if you're a YouTube streamer and you make money in a substantial way where you can actually support some sort of bills, in no means should you discount as what being said here, because if you actually look at it, a lot of this is just shit that you already act in belief of that you're doing right now. Because what is going on is that I lost my train of thought. It's the fact that we see so much of this shit where, like, you have jobs now where you can make money by doing this shit. Playing video games on a fucking computer. Sorry, hit my mic. And that pays you money. Now, the shit is being clamped down on, but still, it's capitalism comes up with crazy shit to make money. But let's continue.
Employer, and you pay, you get a salary, you pay taxes over that. And that's the only thing we consider work, right? We do not include caring for our kids in GDP. We do not include caring for the elderly in GDP, right? Or all kinds of other volunteers work. Now, if you have this ideology, this belief system about everyone should do this kind of work, and then there's suddenly no work left anymore, right? Because the robots are coming, they're taking more and more jobs, then you get into this crisis.
So, fun fact, fun little aside here. I hope I'm part of the generation that you see in Ghost of the Shell Solid State Society, where you get the robot nurses and they put you in a VR and you had the good drugs. hope I'm part of that situation. They already got PlayStation VR, so yay, woohoo! But I'm more part of that generation where, hey, I'm old, but I'm living in the VR simulator. Sort of like, the whole Horizon Zero Dawn. And speaking of Horizon Zero Dawn, I may fucking play that. But let's continue.
Theological and you just start inventing jobs that don't need to exist. I think that is exactly what we've seen happening in the past couple of decades. And I mean, if you want to see what the future can look like, I think you should go to a country like Japan, because Japan has the most robots per capita, right? It's the most technologically advanced society in the world, probably. But then the unemployment rate is the lowest in the whole rich world as well. So how did they do it? Well, you just walk around in Tokyo for a couple of hours and you'll see so many jobs that don't need to exist, right? There are roadworks and there are literally 10 people standing next to it, waving to, go to the left, go to...
Huh. This is true. In Japan, there are a lot of jobs where you see people, like, you see a lot of jobs where they've innovated themselves out of human existence. But let's continue.
You're right. It's absolutely useless. But that's what happens if you have this ideology that everyone needs to have a job.
Well, so where does what is the ideology? Is that a function of capitalism? I mean, it's clearly not just puritanical, or maybe it is, and somehow we exported that to Japan. Is it just a function of capitalism? And what does?
No. Communism had it as well, right? So if you went to the Soviet Union, there was also this ideology that everyone should have a job, right? And you would go to a bakery or something, and you would buy a piece of bread, and there would be someone to give it to you, someone to hand you over the receipt, someone to put it in a bag, right? And just because there's this ideology, we all need a job. I think that's what we need to get rid of. The real goal of the future should be, as one science writer once said, the real goal of the future should be full unemployment, so that we can live the good life, right? That should be the promise of technological progress.
I mean, in some respects, there's a failure of culture too, right? Because there is not enough of a competition for that time. I mean, you mentioned.
Yeah, and then we get AIs and robots, and then we have the Matrix, and then the red pillars are showing up to be like, "Whoa, I told you guys that you guys are, inventing or devaluing certain people, certain groups out of, taking them out of, like, yeah, we're no longer the hunter-gatherer tribes that we used to be. We're no longer the caveman that we used to be. And because of that, there are a lot of things that we used to actually kind of... There are things, and there are situations where we no longer have to put up with the subsistence that we've had before. But yeah, that was a thing where we actually used to live off of having farms and turning the land. We're no longer at that point where we need to do that anymore. And I think that's where a lot of you need to work to eat comes from. Where if everybody wasn't a part of the community, was actually helping or supporting the community, then you had the same situation that you have now. Fuck you guys. Come on, I can dodge. But let's continue.
Mention how much people watch TV. I think specifically in this country, but there it's and certainly you quote Bertrand Russell. The idea that we don't really, that our leisure time is really just a way to regenerate for work, as opposed to the development of a rich cultural life that.
Let me let him finish.
makes pursuing things that aren't for work as easy as sort of like almost like second nature as the idea of like entering the workforce.
Yeah, I agree. But here's the interesting thing. If you compare countries internationally,
Too
and you
quick,
look at
not
the
quick
countries
enough.
with the longest work week, those are also the countries where people watch the most amount of television, right? Because you
This is true. We have the longest work week, and we watch the most amount of television because we're trying to recuperate from the terror that is work. But let's continue.
they work so hard, and then at the end of the day, the only thing you can do is sit back and watch stupid cable news, right? And be brainwashed. If you look at the countries with much
Like when you
shorter
go on
working
Fox
weeks,
News.
you'll see that there are also the countries where people go to the theater most often, where they read the most books, where they do most volunteers work, etc. So my conviction is that if people have the time, they can also, live the good life and actually develop their cultural taste and you name it. But you need the time for it. If you're tired, then the only thing you can do is watch stupid television.
All right, guys.
If you're selling your home.
All right, so that's gonna be enough for that today. I'm just gonna say a couple things as I end the program today. Oh wow, I've been streaming for like 2 hours now. One, the first thing I'm gonna say is nobody can take your power away. You give it away. Nobody takes your agency away unless they have guns and shit like that. But if you think that you don't have a choice to make over how you respond to things, yeah, that's kind of bad. But on a other note is, do you have a bullshit job? I will say it. I have a bullshit job. I have no compunctions about having a bullshit job. I'm hoping to have a less bullshit job. If you guys can like and subscribe or stream or whatever to whatever platform I'm streaming this now, or like and subscribe on YouTube when I finally have it up, that'll be great. But I really am hoping not to have such of a bullshit job, because that is one thing that people need: bread and circuses. They need bread and fucking circuses. And this is a circus. Because look at all these clowns that's on the motherfucking screen. And ooh, we moving in unison. Ooh, this is lovely. But guys, enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you for watching here at Crimson 60620. Remember my merch store. And enjoy. Peace.